Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today on this episode, we need to talk about one of the most important variables in choosing the correct fishing line for whatever you're fishing, whatever technique you're throwing, whatever lure you're throwing. This is a very, very important factor. And so we're going to get into that. But first, I just want to remind everybody, if you enjoy this content, if you enjoy the videos I put on SonarFishing, make sure you try to hit that subscribe button and also like and share the content. Those are great ways to support the channel and you don't have to spend a dime. So thank you guys in advance for that. But let's get right into it. So one of the most important things that fishing line can do for you is it can really help to enhance the presentation that you're throwing out there. Obviously, we want line that is strong and is abrasion resistant and brings fish back to the boat. But no matter if you're fishing monofilament, copolymer, fluorocarbon, or braid, you want to make sure that it has the right qualities for that presentation. Okay, so for instance, one thing that I don't think is talked about near as much is drag in relation to what line you're using. So, and what I mean, I'm not talking about the drag on your reel. I'm talking about actual resistance in the water that's creating drag. Okay, so the larger the line diameter, the more drag you're going to get in the water, and that can affect you in a positive way with some techniques, and also very negative way with other techniques. So a couple things that drag will do for you, you know, when fishing is number one, drag is going to reduce the depth that your bait is going to run. Okay, so that is a big deal. So for things like deep diving crankbaits or deep diving jerk baits, or even fishing a chatterbait or like a spinnerbait or something like that, if you have a heavier line, you're not going to get as deep as a lighter line or thinner diameter line. Okay, so that is very important to remember. You know, I remember when I first started getting into deep diving crankbaits, I was learning from the best. I was reading as much as I could, watching videos and things like that, and one of the most common things that you heard from these experts in the field was making sure that you reduce your line diameter so you can get that bait deeper. Okay, so the lighter the line, or the thinner the diameter more specifically, because you can have two lines that are the same pound test rating and one is a lot thicker than the other. Okay, so that's something you need to pay attention to, the line diameter more so than just the pound test rating. Another thing that drag can do for you when it comes to the baits that you throw is it can reduce the fall rate. Okay, this is more so important for things like maybe flipping and pitching, or using, you know, casting out a jig or some type of soft plastic bait. By lightening up your line, you can achieve a faster fall rate with the same weight, whatever weight you're using for that bait. So there's oftentimes that maybe I don't want to increase the weight of my bait all that much, and the reason why you might not want to increase the weight of the bait as opposed to decreasing the line size is that the more weight you have on a bait, the more leverage a fish has to throw it. So it's like once you get up into 3/4 ounce and 1 ounce weights for most of these different baits, whether it's a football jig or something, your landing percentage is going to go way down. It's not going to be very good. You know, I've had many times where I've been throwing like a 1.25 ounce jackhammer because that's what I was getting bit on, and boy oh boy, once those fish hit the surface, it is, you know, a nail biter. You're losing a lot of fish with a heavy bait like that. Same thing with like you know, jigging spoons and stuff like that. So it's more advantageous to try to reduce your line size to achieve that same rate of fall that you're looking for, more than, you know, increasing your weight. Sometimes it can work that way, sometimes it doesn't. But, you know, for instance, when I'm flipping and pitching, usually I'm working within if I'm using fluorocarbon, I'm using between 20-pound test and 25-pound test. You know, if it's you know, a little bit colder out, maybe it's winter time, I want a slower fall rate, I'm okay going to the 25-pound test. If it's during the summertime, I need a quick fall rate, I may go down to 20-pound test if I can swing it, you know, if the cover's light enough. And 22-pound test Tatsu is kind of my favorite Goldilocks line, because it's like just absolutely perfect. It's thin enough that you can get a good fast fall rate and just kind of adjust the lure size a little bit, but also it's extremely strong. So so fall rate is another thing that you've got to think about when it comes to the size of line that you're using. And so again, it's the same thing with the depth, the running depth factor. Fall rate has to do with line diameter. Thinner the diameter, the faster that bait's going to fall. Another thing that you got to think about with drag is, say you're throwing a crankbait. Okay, the bigger the line that you're throwing, the more of a bow you're going to experience in that line, because as that bait's digging down, it's the line itself, you know, on a long cast is going to create a little bit of a bow as it's slicing through the water. So the thinner the line, the more direct contact you're going to have with your bait, because there's less friction, there's less drag. So those are all things to pay attention to. So let's talk a little bit about you know, some of the things that I really pay attention to with the different presentations that I use when it comes to like the same size line. So here we've got Tatsu from Seagar, which is top shelf mainline fluorocarbon, okay, in 20-pound tests. And then we've got Red Label. Tough as nails, super awesome, strong, abrasion resistant line, but much less expensive. And both of these are awesome. I use both of them on a regular basis. I may even use Red Label even more. But when I'm trying to achieve a certain you know, a certain fall rate, like a faster fall rate, or trying to get a bait down deeper, even though I'm using 20-pound tests with both of these, I'm going to lean towards Tatsu because the line diameter is different. So on here you can see what the line diameter is. This one says 0.015 for 20-pound test Tatsu. Then you look over here on Red Label, it is 0.016. Okay, so obviously a little bit bigger. That doesn't sound like a big difference, but when it comes to line diameter, that's actually quite a bit of difference. You will notice that in your presentation if you're paying attention to it. So the reason I bring this up is not because I'm saying that Tatsu is always better or something like that, but for presentations where, again, I'm trying to get a faster fall rate while maintaining a stronger line, or I'm trying to get my bait down deeper, have more direct contact with my bait during the presentation, Tatsu is going to be my choice. So for you know, great examples of this would be deep diving crankbaits, you know, trying to get chatterbaits down deeper, things like that. However, if I'm looking to actually do the opposite, maybe keep a bait higher in the water column, and I really don't care about the running, you know, getting maximum running depth out of my bait, I just need something that's really strong and I can fish a bait effectively up shallow, you know, Red Label is going to be perfectly well suited for that type of scenario, because, you know, it's not like it's the thickest diameter on the market, but it's not the thinnest diameter, okay? But it's it's less expensive. I can, you know, re-spool it more often and not feel bad and break the bank, and so I can use it for those techniques that I don't necessarily worry about line diameter with. You know, topwaters, for instance, like even though I don't use fluorocarbon for most of my like hard bait topwaters, things like buzz baits, which sink anyways if you don't reel them in, I like to use Red Label because it has that extra, you know, diameter to it, and helps me bring it to the surface faster. Okay, so anyways, guys, these are just some thoughts on you know, how line diameter and the size of the line affects your fishing. So pay attention with certain techniques. It's really, really important to pay attention to this factor, and you know, it'll really help you fine-tune your presentations over time. So thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions at all, drop a comment below, but other than that, make sure you consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel, and I'm going to see you out on the water. Make sure you trust the process.